Our celebration of Black History Month continues with a very special Black literature collection featuring movies adapted from classic novels. And here to tell us about it is our very own Black Experience editor, Kaila. Kaila, what do you have for us?
I have so much for you guys. You know, I'm always cooking up something, some kind of collection. And this week, I want to call out the Black Literature Collection that was created in honor of Miss Toni Morrison, who would have been 92 last week on February 18th. She's a literary legend, Pulitzer Prize winning novelist. So I thought it'd be a good idea to put together a collection of Black books that were adapted into TV series and films. So there's a huge range of films in this collection. This is just a snapshot. There's a ton, from classics like Beloved and The Color Purple to page turners like Waiting to Exhale and Think Like a Man, which I also forgot was a book at one point. Best-selling biographies like Malcolm X, The Pursuit of Happiness, the list goes on. And there are also documentaries that will highlight the most iconic Black authors and playwrights, including Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, August Wilson, Zora Neale Hurston, and so many more. My recent favorite is From Scratch, okay? But if I had to pick a classic favorite, it has got to be A Raisin in the Sun, which was adapted from a play written by Lorraine Hansberry. The title comes from the poem Harlem by Langston Hughes. If you know it, might sound familiar. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? So it centers on the Younger family who receives an insurance check for $10,000 after their father passes away. And the whole plot is about what to do with the money. Like each of the members of the family has something to say about what can we do with this $10,000. And I won't give away the ending, but it's pretty shocking. And I think that is my favorite because it's really hard to adapt a play into a film because 99% of plays, they happen on one stage. There's one setting, maybe two. And in a movie, you always see things like moving and changing. But for some reason, even though 90% of the movie takes place in the living room of the Younger family, you barely notice because the story is just that good. So I had to pick this one. It's a classic. There's also a 1961 version, which I had not seen, starring Sidney Poitier. But this one I have seen. And the cast is it's star-studded. I mean, come on. It's great. So that's my favorite. Kwame, what's your favorite movie that's been adapted from a book?
That's a great picture option, Kaila. Actually saw the original Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier. It's such a great movie, and it was a good historical piece. But for myself, I am a student of history, and I really love Malcolm X, and so I seen this movie, years ago, and it's always been a really, one of my favorite movies of all time. But I never actually read the actual autobiography of Malcolm X, and this disclaimer, I don't read a lot anymore. I listen to audiobooks. And so I didn't read the Malcolm X autobiography. I listened to it, but it's just as good. It was narrated by Lawrence Fishburne. It was amazing. And it's crazy to see how much from the autobiography, the book, that they actually were able to, show on screen. And having be able to, see the movie and then go back and quote unquote read the book, you can see the plot points in the movie that were lifted right from the book. And it's just, both stories are amazing. Malcolm X was a incredible man. I'm so impressed of his, educational journey. For those who don't know, Malcolm X was just a regular guy, even a crook at one point where he was, committing petty crimes. Then he gets sent to prison, and then he pretty much reformed his entire life after, being introduced to a mentor of sorts while he was in prison. And that's really where he, gained all of his information. He just would spend all of his time reading, and to the point where he read literally everything that was in the prison library. And he became so well spoken, so well read, he just knew so much. He just was so knowledgeable. It's just you can't help but to be impressed of his intellectual capabilities. And it's still to this day, after reading the book and going back to the movie, it leaves you wondering what could have been, what could have been his full potential as an intellectual. Just reading the book just left me so impressed. And then Denzel Washington's performance of Malcolm X is now like it. While I was quote unquote reading the book, I just kept imagining like Denzel's face and not like Malcolm X's face. It's hilarious. Oh wait, that's not who Malcolm X was. It's Denzel Washington.
Denzel X.
Denzel X. But we all know who Denzel is. He's that guy. He's an amazing actor, and his portrayal of Malcolm X is so groundbreaking for me that like I literally see Malcolm X as Denzel Washington. Which, sorry Malcolm, but Denzel played a really good you. So if you have not seen this movie or read the autobiography, I highly recommend that you do so. David, what have you chosen for your selection?
Yeah, so first I want to co-sign both of your picks because Malcolm X is an incredible movie. Probably Spike Lee's best movie. I mean, you could argue Do the Right Thing is his best, but I like Malcolm X, I think, largely based on Denzel's performance, is just it's hard to compare it. Also, A Raisin in the Sun. In college, I took a theater class and wrote my final term paper dissecting A Raisin in the Sun and the whole story, and was one of like my favorite things I ever wrote in my entire school career because the story is just so powerful and it's so well written. And I think it speaks to the fact that they've made two adaptations that are really, really good because the source material is just that good. Right. So cannot recommend either of these higher. If you have not seen them, do it. The movie I have picked and that stood out to me in this collection is the 1998 supernatural drama Beloved. And I had forgotten this is actually kind of a supernatural horror film to some degree. It is based on the 1987 novel by Toni Morrison, and it stars Oprah Winfrey. As it's so weird calling her Oprah Winfrey. We just know her as Oprah. I even debated whether to do it, but like, well, that's her whole name. Oprah Winfrey as a former slave living in Cincinnati, Ohio, shortly after the end of the Civil War. And her life is turned upside down once again, however, when she is haunted by a poltergeist, as well as the human reincarnation of her deceased daughter. Beloved was the very first feature film produced by Oprah's Harpo Films. It co-starred Danny Glover and Thandiwe Newton, and is directed by Oscar-winning Silence of the Lambs filmmaker Jonathan Demme. And this movie holds a like weird place in my heart, actually, for a weird reason, because a portion of it was filmed in my hometown of Lancaster, PA, literally right down the street from my house at a place called Landis Valley Museum, which is sort of this outdoor living history museum, not unlike a Renaissance fair, but with like colonial farm people. You dressed up as farmers, and it's kind of this outdoor experience. And in a quiet town like Lancaster, a movie production is a really big deal. Like when Lady Gaga was dating Taylor Kinney, the actor from Chicago Fire, who is from Lancaster and still lives there and his family is there. When she would visit Lancaster, you would know within seconds that she had crossed the Lancaster border because the chain of text messages that would go through to from like people that you knew in high school to my sisters to me, and then my mom would be like, "Did you hear Lady Gaga was in town?" Like that's just the vibe in Lancaster. So this was huge. And when Oprah's in town, like forget it. It was the biggest thing that had ever happened. But I was in high school at the time Beloved was filmed, and I specifically remember a bunch of kids skipping school to try and be extras in the movie. Like they weren't quiet about it. They're like, "I'm going down to be an extra in this movie." And quite a few of them were actually. And then that was a big deal. And then some of them went to the local premiere of the movie, and that was a big deal. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I remember from being a kid. Unfortunately, Beloved was a box office bomb at the time. But it was actually really well reviewed by critics. It has, I think, about a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and it was nominated for a Best Costume Design Oscar. So it's still worth your time, still worth checking out. It is a good movie, even if people didn't see it back then. in 1998, way back in the day.
And
And you can check out all the movies we just talked about. Very, very good picks here, and the whole collection is excellent. And just check out the Black Literature Collection by saying Black Experience into your voice remote. You'll find a lot of great stuff there.